Earlier I spoke to Pete Simi. He's the author of American Swastika, Inside the White Power Movement's Hidden Spaces of Hate. As part of his research into white supremacism, he spent an extensive amount of time with Paige in 2001. I asked him to tell us what he knew about the alleged gunman.
I ended up spending about 2 years off and on, quite a bit of time with Paige. I would stay over at their home and sleep over at on their living room couch. Paige had one bedroom and his housemate had the other room. And they would allow me to stay over and just kind of hang out with them in order to try and kind of understand their world and get to know them better.
Right, to help us understand that world, what actually specifically was motivating them?
Paige was, part of the much larger movement of white supremacists. He was what you might call an independent, at the time that I knew him, an independent neo-Nazi skinhead. He identified as a skinhead. He shaved his head. He was, at that time, getting into the tattoos and was starting to tattoo his body with different symbols that were, important for that movement. He definitely endorsed a variety of different beliefs, such as anti-Semitism and the idea that, a small conspiracy of Jewish people essentially dominate world affairs. He was, antagonistic to anything so-called non-white. In particular, most of his rhetoric on a regular basis was directed towards blacks. And, it was a lot of anti-black talk and anti-black sentiment. And he was, at that time he had moved to Southern California from back east. He came out to Southern California, rode out on his motorcycle with not much more than the clothes on his back, and got involved in the white power music scene immediately. That's why he relocated and became heavily involved in that music scene, playing in various different bands as a guitar player, and attending, music shows and helping to, promote and organize those shows and meeting with other groups as well, and just developing a kind of a broad-based set of affiliations. When I knew him, he wasn't necessarily a specific member of any one group, but he was affiliated with a large number of different groups across the white supremacy movement.
Music, then, one major part of his, of how the white supremacism manifested itself for him. The military also a major factor in his life. How does that fit in with all this?
Paige explained to me that he knew about racist skinheads and white power folks prior to joining the military. He had been involved in the punk scene in the Denver area as an adolescent. And had become aware of racist skinheads and this sort much younger. But when he joined the military, he told me that this is what really exposed him to why the beliefs of neo-Nazism make so much sense. To put it bluntly, he told me that if you don't go into the military as a racist, you will certainly come out of the military as a racist. And he explained that in the military he began to realize how upside down the world is that we live in, and how discriminated whites are. That there's all of this affirmative action that's essentially reverse discrimination against whites from that he began to believe in this perspective. And he became exposed to white supremacist material, propaganda while in the military, and individuals as well who already endorsed and were involved in the white supremacy movement.
But there's no sense this necessarily leads to violence. You use the term political activism a number of times. Is that what underpins it? Are they trying to change society in order to redress what they feel is some imbalance? Or does this necessarily lead to violence?
In some cases it leads to violence. In other cases it remains, essentially non-violent forms of political activism, like marches, rallies, like music shows. So this is one of the things that makes it very difficult in terms of assessing the potential threat of these types of groups and these types of individuals. Is in some cases the very same circumstances, the very same conditions, the very same characteristics result in something in terms of what happened in Wisconsin, and in other cases it results in music shows and marches and rallies.
It has been reported that the Department of Homeland Security cut back its analysis of white extremism in the US in favor of looking at Islamic extremism, even environmental groups and so forth. Is it clear why they made that decision? Do you think then that enough attention is being given to these groups?
Well, in terms of the Department of Homeland Security, one of the things that happened, they released a report about right-wing extremism, 2009, I believe, and one of the issues they mentioned was the potential connection between involvement in the military, having experience in the military, and being involved in right-wing extremist groups, and in particular right-wing terrorism. One of the things that's very clear, if you just simply look at the indictments, the federal indictments of domestic terrorism that involve right-wing extremists, is disproportionately these individuals have a background in the military. They have military experience. The numbers are very clear in that respect. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that the military causes them to become a right-wing extremist, or certainly not a right-wing terrorist. But there is some kind of relationship there. And when the Department of Homeland Security released that report, it was unfortunate. It became kind of a political hot potato. And the report was really heavily criticized, and I think it was unfairly characterized as suggesting somehow that all military personnel are, suspect and potential, domestic terrorists. And certainly that wasn't my read of that report. I think it is vital that these groups not be pushed to the side as being less important than other types of extremists.